Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Hello there, everyone. I'm LEGO Gavin Productions on Instagram and Gavin Productions 34 on YouTube. And this is the Battle of Umbara from Star Wars: Clone Wars.
We got a fantastic layout with some really unique lighting in here. That's what really makes this pop. So why don't we start with kind of the section here with these buildings and tell us a little bit about kind of the story of what's happening in here.
Yep, so this is the capital city of Umbara. We never actually see it in the show, we just hear about it. And as a kid, I always thought it'd be cool to see that, and finally I was able to build it. So lots of buildings and stuff like that. The lights, I wanted to make sure each building has a set of lights. So we've got the hallway with the main light, and then a couple other lights shining through these windows. The trans light blue, I think, works really well to reflect light and see through things. So
yeah. So given that you said you don't see it in the show, what was this kind of source material like? How did you design these buildings?
Yep, so we just have one screenshot, like a wide shot from the show that's really far away and you don't see much. So I used that as a baseline and then looked at the color scheme of kind of some other Umbaran buildings and kind of was able just to do whatever I want, which is nice, but also tough because you have to make it so when people look at it, it's like that's from the show, that's from this episode, but you still have a lot of creative freedom, which is really nice.
How did you incorporate the kind of translucent elements here with the gray buildings? Because you've got those sort of rivers of light kind of running throughout the buildings, and obviously that kind of breaks up the structure a little bit.
Yep, so it's a mostly light gray and dark gray build, so you want to break it up a little bit. So I have all these translucent pieces from mocks from multiple different years, and I just really like the color palette between trans light blue and light bluish gray. And then, yeah, on the front of the buildings, using these patterns with 1x2s, I think it really breaks up some of the tile work and bricks. So you're not just stacking bricks, you've got a nice little stuff to break it up every once in a while.
One of the architectural elements that really stands out in this build is the angled walls in a lot of these buildings. So what were some of the challenges of building those? Because LEGO doesn't always want to cooperate well when you're doing angles.
Yeah, angles are tough, especially when you try to transport stuff. It tends to fall apart. Using a lot of slopes. The few buildings we see in Umbara have a lot of weird shapes and everything like that, so using a lot of slopes, inverted slopes are kind of the main thing to get this, and then building lots of panels and hinges to make them kind of rotate sideways and then line up.
And as we take a look behind the back here, you can get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at some of the lighting you have and the way that that's kind of worked into the buildings. So what was that setup like, kind of incorporating that into the buildings?
Yep, so for the convention, you really only see the mock from the front side, which allows the back side to kind of where you need to manipulate everything. So you see all the wires and all the batteries hidden underneath the mock, underneath the filler brick. And the buildings are open, so I can reach in and turn on the lights, turn off the lights, set up the figures, stuff like that.
Yeah. What is your lighting of choice that you've incorporated here?
I've got pretty much everything across the board from just years of collecting. Light my bricks, brick stuff, and brick loot. That's all three of them I've got in there.
Perfect. What are some of your favorite kind of particular battle scenes and minifigs that you've got down here in this section?
Yep, so the 212th, the orange guys, those are some of my favorite battalions. So I've got them spread out with Obi-Wan, and yeah, I just really wanted to portray a chaotic kind of battlefield. Normally I like to do front lines and stuff, but for this one I thought it'd be better just to utter chaos and make sure the clones are outnumbered and surrounded. I think that always makes for a good story.
And that takes us to the other half of this build, which is kind of a stark contrast here with the black landscaping. So what were the main elements you were trying to capture out here?
Yep, so this is the more iconic Umbara when you think of from the show. The main road that leads to the capital, that was kind of the first big thing I wanted to build. I think the most recognizable part from Umbara. And then obviously all the vegetation and the kind of space Vietnam as it's been deemed in the Star Wars universe. So lots of vegetation, kind of weird plants that I really wanted to make look like it was going to reach out and kind of grab you as you're walking through the terrain.
One of the most unique LEGO tree designs I think I've ever seen here, using the translucent bricks as branches. Now, I think translucent bricks are well known for not always having the greatest clutch. So yeah. What were the challenges of kind of keeping those branches together and those elements?
Yep, so there's a lot of them. That way they all kind of pack together real nice. And then the structure has lots of modified bricks with studs on all sides to pack them in together. And then I had to rebuild them all at the convention because a lot of them broke apart. But I'm happy with the way they turned out for sure.
And how did you do, it looks like almost like little trenches in here and kind of building these divots into the ground and landscaping. How do you kind of plan that out in terms of how many bricks high that'll be and making sure that all comes out like you want it?
Yep, I'm a big history fan, so World War I, World War II, I like to incorporate those elements into all my builds. So it was going to be pretty flat, but I wanted to have all these different trenches and I always build it up a little bit to make sure you can get to the ground floor to make these trenches, and then it makes for a good viewpoint from eye level from the front. I just love the views. You can look eye level, really feel like you're with the troops on the ground.
This pathway is also one of the more unique parts. So what were the main elements you used in there to get that sort of patterned look leading up to the buildings?
Yeah, that was a challenging one for sure. Again, trying to make Lego do kind of circular shapes and stuff. So a lot of the trans blue again, but a lot of these kind of triangle tiles or quarter tiles, and stacking those very tediously 4 times for each one, and then covering that all the way through this part. And then I wanted to make it tie into the city, so I have that design kind of going through the city.
And you've got lots more kind of battle happening out here. So what are some of the particular minifigs you have represented here? And are these a lot of like custom third-party parts?
Yep, so minifigures are my favorite part of the whole process. A lot of just the new Lego ones, and then a lot of Clone Army custom ones as well. I wanted to depict the main scene from the first episode where they get ambushed on the road. So lots of clone casualties, and they're kind of pinned down, surrounded on all sides.
And these fences really stand out too with the lights in them. And then is that just a lot of stacked plates to create that effect?
Yep, this is probably the build that has the most just 1x2s all over the place. But yeah, these electrical fences you see in the show, I wanted to portray those. So they're 1x2s and tiles and studs as well, stacked across from each other to kind of create the barrier that would be the entrance to the city.
Do you keep track of the number of minifigs or the number of parts in a build like this?
Parts, definitely not. Minifigures, I think we're probably close to 100, at least for Clone Troopers, at least 40 or 50. So, yeah.
And what are some of the details as you kind of look inside the walkway, kind of hallway gate area there?
Yeah, so one thing I've wanted to do for a long time is kind of like skywalks from bigger cities. So we've got the main one right there. We've got some clones in there and a Jedi with light up lightsaber. And all my builds I usually love to do tunnels or caves. So instead of a tunnel or cave, I did kind of the skywalk right here. So then you can look through the building and see all the way through, and it just makes a good little view for kids. It's kind of right at their eye level so they can see all the way through the mock.
This is a fantastic looking layout here. When you build something like this, especially something more niche where you said there's not as much source material, what do you find the public reaction usually is to a build like this?
Yeah, it's kind of dependent on age as well. A lot of the kids just like the minifigures or the lights and the tall buildings, but people who maybe in their 20s grew up with the Clone Wars recognize it right away, especially this front part. I've had a lot of good conversation with people who say, the Umbara arc is their favorite in the Clone Wars, and I have to agree with them. So it's really mixed, but definitely more recognizable than some of the other stuff I've done in the past.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I know you post some of your builds online as well, so where can people find that, and what types of stuff do you kind of post out there if people want to see more of your work?
Yeah, when I have time, I just kind of update and I kind of show you guys the process of here's the prototype design, here's the second design, here's my final design. I kind of give some insight on setting up my minifigures and how I plan the builds and everything like that, just on YouTube at Gavin_Productions34.
Well, keep up the great work. Thank you so much for taking us through the build here. It's always fantastic to see what you bring out to the show, so I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, guys.